screen I'm looking at. So Megan is hitting record. Whew. Well, now the pressure's on. I'm just gonna be doing nothing but dumb stuff. All right, so welcome to your DIY Morse code keychains. Today we're gonna be making keychains out of perler beads. Some of you may know these as melty beads. These are the ones that you can put in the little grids and then run an iron over them and melt them. But for our purposes, they also work really well for this craft. So in your baggie, you should have an assortment of beads, approximately or exactly, depending on who made your bag, 20 of each color. You should have a length of embroidery floss that you may notice is stiff at both ends. That is intentional. We put a little bit of glue on these. So if this is a project you're wanting to do on your own later, all you'll need is to dip these in a little bit of glue and make them to nice points and let them dry. You'll understand why we've done that in just a little bit. And then you also have a key ring. And, oh yeah, and a page of your international Morse code here. I've already lined some beads up on it, but you all have this sheet, and I do recommend having that out. Let's set that back. All right, so I think most of you were probably in here before when I was saying to be thinking of words that you want to put in your keychain. In case you weren't in here when I mentioned that, here's an example of a keychain that I made a few days ago. This one says read more. And how this works is the letters run vertically. So this first letter here, you can almost see, so this first letter on this side, because this is, well, I guess I can turn it around so it's the way you would be reading it. This first letter is an R, because this says read more. So it's R, E, A, and D. So it goes across, and then I have a line of spacer beads. That's this blue line here. And then it says more underneath it. So M, O, R, and E. So that gives you also kind of an idea of how big a 2-word with 4 letters is going to look. So it's going to be, that'll be 4 across. Yeah, you can do a long word. It will be, yeah, it would be super wide though, depending on how long your word is. So the letters are all gonna go vertically, so it won't be just like one long strip of beads. It would still have a little bit of depth to it, but it would be much wider than this and shorter. But you can do that, and you can experiment. Once we start weaving these, it's not like they're going to be so hard to get off that you can't start back over again. Yeah, this can definitely be done with other beads. This is actually a really basic bead weaving technique. So if you find that you're into making jewelry or anything like that, you can also use this same technique for, yeah, weaving beads and giving yourself a nice cool pattern that's also nice and flexible. You could like make a bracelet out of it or something. So y'all been thinking of your words? Does everyone have words ready to go? I'm going to take this silence as a yes because we've got everyone muted. All right, so the best way to kind of organize yourself and get this ready to go is by getting your Morse code sheet out and choosing which beads are going to be the color for your long ones, like your dashes, and which beads are going to be your short, just the dots. So you got dots and dashes. That's what Morse code is, basically. So in this case, I've decided that I'm going to turn this at an angle here, and Megan's going to tilt this down. So my long ones, like T, which is just a long one, is going to be a pair of these kind of like fuchsia beads. For something that's short, like E, I've decided that's going to be this blue bead. My third color is green, and it's going to be my spacer beads. So I'm going to be using that whenever there is space left for a let after a letter. Like E is literally just one dot, so it's one bead. Whereas the letter, some of the letters are much longer, like Z here, because I'm going to spell out teen zone with the one I'm going to make with you all tonight, has 6 beads. So if you're putting an E and a Z in the same word, you're going to be needing to add spacer beads after that to designate that that letter is complete. You'll also be using the spacer beads in between your words. So if you, like me, are doing 2 words, like in this one, I have a row of spacer beads in between my 2 words here. I recommend lining your beads up on the paper, just because it's helpful to make sure that A, you have enough of each bead to make that color or to make those words work, and it helps keep you organized as you go through this process. Does anyone have any questions so far about getting yourself organized?
I have a question. So like how many beads long should be the long one? Should it be like 3?
The long one, I recommend using 2 beads for the dash and then 1 bead for the dots.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to give you all a little bit of time to go ahead and arrange your beads. I kind of went and did that already so that I could show you how that works. So I'm going to hang out, and when it seems like everyone's kind of ready for our next steps, just kind of give us a thumbs up in the camera or a ready to go in the chat, whichever way. And when it seems like you're all ready, we'll get moving. I feel like we need some theme music. Still waiting. No, no one really needs me humming. Megan's gonna hum. Summer school will be over by now. Yep. Nope. Yep. That was a great conversation. Yep. Nope. I don't know if they can. Megan and I were talking about summer school, and I informed her that summer school is usually over by this time of the year. So yeah, it was a really exciting conversation. I'm really glad this is all being recorded too. I really wish that Megan had a mic so that you could all hear her humming yakety sax in the background. Everyone's going to learn so much from this session. Yeah, and I probably could say like, oh, you know, like in Benny Hill. Because that's relevant. All the cool kids are watching Benny Hill. People have questions. I'm here to answer questions. How's everyone doing? Are we all doing good? Megan, is everyone doing good? Got a couple thumbs ups. Everyone else still kind of thinking?
Will, I think he's ready. Xander's ready. Vaughn. Bueller.
Yee.
Tessa and Hannah.
All good? Okay. I'm getting Megan's thumbs up. I guess that means we're good to go.
Is that what that means? I don't know. Hannah never put it. I'm gonna assume yes. Go.
Okay. All right, so now we're gonna get started on the fun part, which is the actual weaving of the beads here. So we're gonna start with your string here. You're gonna fold it in half, like so. So fold it in half. We're gonna take this loop, and we're gonna put the loop through your key ring. It's like right in the middle of it. Like so. So you got a loop on one end, your ends on the other, key ring in the middle. Then we're gonna take your ends, pull them through the loop so that you've got a little slip knot hanging on to your key ring. That makes sense to everyone? I can do it again. Do it again. All right, hang on just a sec. All right, so we take our string, fold it in half. So you got the loop at this end, dangly ends at the other. So we're gonna take the loop, put the loop through the key ring. Sorry, this is hard to do. Put it through the key ring, like so. And then this loop, gonna run the rest of the string through that loop. Sorry, this is hard to, that makes sense. So, got it? Okay. That's what's known as a slip knot. All right, so we've got that on there. So that means we've got our two ends, like so. All right, now the fun part. You're gonna take your, you're gonna look at the first letter of your word, or well, let's think about your first word. So I don't know what your words are because everybody's probably got a different word at this point. I'm going to be making one that says teen zone because we're in the teen zone and I run the teen zone. So why not? So mine involves T, two E's, and an N for my first letter or my first word. So we're going to start off with the first bead for each letter for our first row. So we're going to take our string here. You can set it down if you want. And we're going to take the string on the left-hand side. And you notice it's stiff because we put the glue on it. You can also put like nail polish or whatever on it, whatever is going to dry and basically make it almost kind of like a needle, but not quite. We're going to thread the first bead of our first letter on first. So in my case, it's a T, which is a long dash. So I'm going to use the color for one of the beads for my dash on there, just the one. Then my next letter is E, so I'm going to grab one of my things for a dot, which is all E is. E is just a dot. They go vertically. Yeah. So we're just thinking of the very first beads of each letter are going to be what we're dealing with right now. So I've got the first bead for a T, I've got the bead for an E, and I need another bead for an E because I'm doing teen as my first word. And then the first bead for N. So I like to just grab them off of my sheet as I go. It helps me keep track of what comes next pretty easily. So when you're done, you should have 4 beads strung on one of your strings. Yes. Right. If your word is a little longer, it's going to be a few more beads because you're just doing the first bead of each letter. And obviously some letters have significantly more beads than others. And we'll tell you what to do when we have a word that has fewer.
Is it only the first letter in each of the, like the first bead in each of the first letter of the first word only, and not the other words?
Right, we're not even worrying about the other word right now. We are just dealing with the first word, and yeah, the first bead of each letter is the first beads we're going to put on. Because yeah, we're reading it vertically. So I have 4 beads on mine, which is all I need for my letter. So once you have those beads on, Megan, you want to grab the camera here so I can show people what I'm doing? All right. So once I've got those beads on, Will, yes, I think you could do it in half. Yeah, and Xander, if your second word is longer than your first word, yes, I would use spacer beads to make up the difference there. So if your next word is 6 letters long or something, put in 2 spacer beads at the end of your 4-letter word or whatever. And if you're doing a super long word, yeah, you might want to divide it up into 2 halves and do the first half on one part and then pretend the second half of the word is another word. So once you've got your initial beads on there, like so, you're going to take the other half of your string that's just been dangling there with no beads on it, and you're going to run it back through from the opposite direction. This is part of why these are stiff, so that you can run them through easily. So it should look like this when you're done. You've got both ends coming out of the circle of beads, and you can just tighten them like so. And that is how you get this started. So right now it's just going to be a little line here, like that. So that's our first step. And then we're basically just going to keep doing this as each letter goes on. So I'm going to, once again, taking the string on the left-hand side, I'm going to pick up my first letter, which in my case is a T. And now I'm at the point where my E is done, because that was just a dot. And I only needed that dot. So this is when I break out my spacer beads. And I'm going to actually just dump them out so I can grab them a little bit easier. Dump them out on my mask, because why not? All right. So since I had 2 E's here and they're essentially done, I'm going to put on my spacer beads. So I'm going to be using 2 spacer beads here for the 2 E's. And then I'm going to continue with my N, which was another long bead.
Not to call you guys out, but Tessa and Hannah, you look confused. Is that a yes? Okay, they're
Okay, what part are we confused about?
Which
Okay.
like string do we put the next ones on?
You're always going to be working from the left-hand side. So you'll put those on. Once you get them on, then you run the right-hand side back through them from the opposite direction.
Okay.
So you're just going to keep doing it, just basically do it exactly like you did the first one.
Okay.
So,
And then we tighten them up, and they should stack like so once you've been running them. And then you just keep grabbing whichever one is on the left-hand side.
So if we have like an E, which is just like a dot, do we put a spacer in place of the other bead?
Yes.
Okay.
so like my first one is a P, and so like for the long ones, do we put both of the beads on at the same time, or do we
No, you
one at
just
a
do
time?
one of those beads at a time.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Very good.
so that they knew how the letters.
Sure. I can do that on my finished one here. Okay. So I'm gonna set this down on the white so it's a little easier to see than it is on the wood. All right. So this one actually says read more. So in this case, I had chosen, let's see, where's R? So my dots were purple and my dashes were green. Yes. So in this case, read, so the R is this, here's the short one, and then the R has a dash in the middle. So here's my dash, are these two green dots here, and then a dot again for the R. So this letter, these 4 beads going down is R. And then the next letter is an E, which, as we've noticed, only has the dot. So the blue here, if you can see that, those are my spacer beads. So they're taking up the space that the rest of the letters were using for their beads. Does that help? Then we have an A. So that's a dot and a dash. So I have my dot and then my 2 green as my dash. And then D was a dash. So there's my 2 green ones for the dash and then 2 dots. So this first half here that is above the blue line, which the blue line is my spacer in between words. So this little 4x4 section here is what says read. And does that
Okay.
help at all? So yeah, if you have an E, the next beads you're using until you're done with the word will all just be spacer beads because you only needed the 1 bead for E.
Okay, so are we?
Oh, Tessa and Hannah, were you still, did that make any sense?
Okay,
that
yeah.
help?
So my question now is, so now that we're on like the second row, but like on the same letters, do we do it
Mhm.
like opposite? Because now we're gonna be folding it over.
It's actually not going to be folded over since we're working from the same side each time. Yeah, let me try and pull this closer. So I'll do the next row here and show you. So I've been doing teen zone, right? So my T is now complete because it was just 1 dash. So my two dash colors are there. So it's going to start with a spacer bead. And I'm always going to be working with the string on this left-hand side. So there's my spacer bead. Then I have 2 E's, both of which are already done. So again, 2 more spacer beads here, 1 for each E. And then finally N, which is, for me now, a dot. So they're going to be strung on there like this. So they're strung on there like this, and then I'm going to take my right hand one, and I'm going to put it through in the opposite direction. So they don't actually flip at all. It keeps them in the same place when I tighten it up.
How's yours?
And so this word is actually done now for me. This is now what says teen. So the T was a long, so my 2 long colors and then a spacer. Then the 2 E's
And it's like,
and then my N. But yeah, since we're using the same, we're going in the same way. So we just put them on in the order that they come. And then when you're done with that set, you take your other one and go back the opposite way so that your strings are crossed. And it's that crossing that kind of locks them into place.
I think I did it wrong.
The nice thing about this is it is very easy to undo if it got messed up because there's no knots or anything. So all you have to do is just pull the string out, pull the dots out, or pull your beads out, and you can start fresh. Yeah. That's a good. Does anyone have any other? Does that make sense to everyone?
Mhm.
I can try and find another. Yeah, it's so hard when I can't just like walk around and tell you exactly. Yeah, it's hard to do it in this format, but we're all learning. It's a process. And so if you get done with your word, then you're going to want a row of spacer beads to separate your two words, which is the point that I am at for my first word now. But my second word is going to be quite a bit longer because I've got a Z and an O in there, and those are going to be significantly longer because they have a lot of dashes in them. So your words that have a lot of dashes, those are going to be the longest. So in this case, I'm going to do my spacer row here, which is all, for me, all green. But for you, it's whatever color you've chosen for your spacer beads. So once again, put them on the left-hand side. And I'm taking the right side and running that back through those beads. And tightening that up. So I now have a row of green as my spacer. Which I realize these colors are now not super easy to see on a screen, but hindsight's 2020. Should have picked like really highly contrasting colors.
Anybody seen any good, like really good TikToks lately?
All right, well, I've done my first word, so I'm going to move on to my second word. But you all keep going at whatever pace is comfortable for you. My next word has a lot of dashes. So my next word's actually going to take a while because I'm doing zone. And Z has 2 dashes and 2 dots. O has 3 dashes. And then N and E don't have very many beads at all. So I'm going to be using a lot of spacer beads in this word because of the nature of some of the letters. But it works the same as the first word you did. Like once you've got your row of spacer beads in there to separate your words, then you just start from the beginning again. You start with the first letter of your word with the first bead of each letter. So for me, it's Z, which starts with a dash, and an O, which also starts with a dash, and an N, which also starts with a dash, and then E for zone. E has just the dot, and that's it. And again, I'm always taking them from the left-hand side or stringing them onto the left-hand side in the order that I want to see them. And then I'm finishing off that row with the right hand bit of string back through and then tightening. So the further you get along, the more you see they're in a nice, even, stacked row of beads. So I'm just going to keep on making these. If you have questions, please feel free to jump on in and ask them. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need to play with my phone? Okay. You can look at cat pictures. That's literally all the, my phone is 90% cat pictures. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm pretty sure that's where all my phone's memory is gone. It's videos of cats and dogs. Yeah, like I said, this technique is a really good one because you can do so many different things with it. If you diagrammed out like a pattern or something you wanted to do, you could use this exact same technique for putting whatever you wanted in a bead pattern. You don't have to be spelling things out in Morse code. It's just fun to have like a little secret message on your keychain. And Morse code's good to know.
Hello. I don't know how to do like a new space to get the second word.
Okay, so you just take your spacer beads, and I don't know how long your words are, but however many beads wide yours is, just make the whole row those spacer beads.
Okay.
Yeah, so the whole row is just that color that isn't assigned to a dot or dash.
All right, but like, how do I make it like on the bottom of them? I'm like confused.
On the bottom of, yeah, can you hold it up so I can see?
Okay. This is my first word, but I don't know how to make
Okay,
the
I'm gonna,
spacer beads go on the bottom.
okay, Megan, can you make it? I'm looking at you on a different computer so I can see a little bit better. I haven't just like fled. Okay. Okay, so I think yours might be kind of sideways, it looks like. Let me see. Can you hold that up again?
Yeah.
All right, so what's your first word?
It's a secret.
Oh, okay. So it's a secret word. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so is yours going across?
Yeah.
That
Was
way.
that wrong?
Okay. Kind of, a little bit. Maybe that's why you're asking about the flipping around then. Because yeah, it's supposed to be, I'll try and get back here. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oop. Megan's switching stuff again. So it's supposed to be more like across like this. So where you're,
Oh.
so this is where the across is supposed to be. Does
Got
that
it.
make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be why it's not, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm completely.
I'm glad we could figure it out in the end.
How do you do that with the
Um,
other?
so I'm gonna take off, I'm just gonna clear mine out a little. I'm gonna take off some beads for mine so I can start from a different point. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to where my spacer beads are. We'll just pretend that I'm starting a new word. How about that? We'll just pretend that, maybe the others aren't there. Either way, you've got your key ring and you've got your two ends. So, you know what, I'm just going to take these all off and start from scratch. So that'll be easier to demonstrate. Sorry, it's taking a second to get these beads off. Okay. So we are starting out with our ring and we've got the two ends, right? Like so. So one of these, so I like to set it down on the table or whatever I'm in front of and look at it like, so I've got my left side and my right side. So I'm always going to be working from the same side. So I'm going to pick the first bead from each letter, right? So in my case, my first one was T, and then I had two E's, so those are both dots. So I'll put those two on, and my last letter is N, which started with a dash. So I've got 4 beads on there right now, and they're just kind of hanging out on the left-hand side in the order that I read them in. So the first one, the first letter you see is the first bead you put on. And so now they're hanging off on that side. I take my string that doesn't have anything on it. Megan, can you pick this up and show? Okay. So I'm going to slide them down a little bit. So I've got them on here like this, and I've got this string here that's not got any beads on it. So it's going to go, trying to do this without my hands blocking it. It's going to go in through, if I can get a hold of this, it's going to go back. So I've got the end coming out this side. This is going to go in the end on the opposite. Or this is going to go in the end that you just came out of. So it's like it's going back in the opposite direction, but it's using the other string, which is what's going to lock them in together. So it's almost like you're tying a knot, but with the beads in the middle instead. So you get this kind of like almost a triangle going, and then when you pull it up, like it takes a little bit before it stops bending. Once you put another row or 2 on, it will stop doing that little bend in the middle. But it should line up in just a row with a string coming out on each end. And then you just keep using that same side. So in my case, the next letter, I had a T, so I'm going to start with the next bead for T, and that's my next one. And I had 2 E's in the middle. Both of those were dots, so they don't need any more beads. So I'm going to put my spacer beads on in place in that place. So T, then my 2 spacer beads for the E's, and then an N was another of my dashes. So it's the second row of beads. Once again, they're just like hanging out on the left-hand string, and I take the right hand and go in the end that the other end is coming out of. So it's going back through the opposite direction, and I tighten it up, and now they both lie flat and next to each other, like, sorry, this is really hard to do on a camera, like so. Is that making sense? Yes, okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna keep going. I was done with T, E, E, N is blue. All right. So yeah, if you wanted to make designs, you could totally get some like graphing paper out and just like, use a color. Let's see. I'm gonna have to look. Yeah, Will's. Yeah, Will's. Yours is looking nice. Let's see. Yeah. Cool. So did you add a couple of rows of spacers there at the end, Will? Is that what? Let's see, is the yellow your spacer color? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm like trying to see, going between 2 screens here. Yeah, that looks good, Will. So it looked like you were done with yours, huh? Or did you have any others left to go on yours, Will? You done? So yeah, all you have to do when you get to the end is tie a knot in your string and then trim the ends, and you're done. Yeah, it's super simple. Awesome. yours kind of looks like something out of Minecraft, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to add my row of spacers here. Oh, as I was saying, yeah, if you wanted to, you know, turn this into something beyond, if you wanted to turn this into, say, you know, like a design, or if you wanted to maybe literally write something out in the beads, I'd say you could get like some graph paper and some colored pencils and, you know, sketch out your design. You could use this technique really easily to make like a bracelet or, you know, something much longer. You know, maybe you wanted to like put something on like the zipper on your backpack or whatever. You could definitely do that with the same technique. Perler beads are super easy to find. You can buy them, you know, at like Walmart, Hobby Lobby, whatever. Embroidery floss is just as easy to find. And key rings you can find in most of those same places too. So these are all, it's all fairly accessible.
Oh, look at Caitlin and Emma. Hold on.
Oh.
Yeah, you can
Oh, nice. Yeah, those look really good. Yeah, so once you get to the end, all you have to do is just knot them up and trim the ends. Or if you wanted to leave the ends, you could have like a little bit of fringe or something if you wanted.
Thank you.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Yeah, if you're all done, you can feel free to take off. If you're still working and you have questions, hang out and ask.
Bye.
Bye, thanks for coming.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, I really did not need to schedule like an hour and a half of this because this is a much faster craft than that. We could have. We were close to it. Bye, Will. Thanks for coming. You know, we used to have admin privileges on the computers and laptops. And then we didn't. Nope, I think we just got new computers and new setups, and I know. They stopped trusting all of us. I don't trust you librarians with admin privileges. We are. We're totally shady. You never know what we might do, what we might download. I know. Let's see. I'm still making my teen zone one. I'm determined to finish this. And everyone's got enough beads and stuff. No one's running into problems where they're running out of beads or string or anything, right? Oh, okay. So I'm guessing everyone else was doing okay on the number of beads. They were not concerned. Okay. That's okay. Any more spaces? So I'm just keep continuing to make this along with y'all. But basically, this is how you make them. So if you're watching the recording at home, there's not too many surprises coming after this. When you get to the end of your weaving, you will just knot your string a couple times and trim it. Is there anyone left? Oh, yeah, no, we'll stay on for as long as, oh, stop recording. Yeah, we could probably stop the recording part. Bye, everybody on the recorded session. If you're live, please stick around. We're not ending this, but since there's not much more for the recording part, we're gonna keep that part short for people watching later. So thanks for tuning in if you were watching this recorded.